Big Ange Postecoglou is on the English FA's list to replace Gareth Southgate as manager. Meanwhile, Spurs are still interested in a goal machine from Portugal, and Man United have gone big on an 18-year-old centre-back with barely any professional games under his belt. Madness. All this and more in today's episode of Daily Premier League Transfer News with me, Barnaby Slater. Guys, thank you so much for continuing to watch and listen and support the channel. Really appreciate it. Please do press like on this video and subscribe. It really helps get this video up the algorithm, and I'm heading towards 10,000 subscribers now, so help me get over the line. Also, you can become a member, only £1 a month. All the details in the description box below, and that really helps me make this daily content for you. But let's get started with a story that broke late last night, actually, over at Spurs. Amanda Staveley, who has stepped down from the board of Newcastle United. She's the woman who basically put together the move for the Saudi Public Investment Fund to take over at Newcastle. Well, now that she's out of there, she's made about £500 million. She's looking for her next big football investment, and stakes in Tottenham Hotspur are among the possible targets that she is looking into. Her investment fund is called PCP Capital Partners, and they've been looking at a number of football clubs to invest in. And that's according to a person familiar with matters of finance. And I'm going to shock you here, that is not me. Staveley, of course, well connected in the Gulf region. Now, here's a question for you. It's been long discussed how Daniel Levy is looking for investors into the club, looking for people to take a stake in the club, ideally for him so that he can remain as chairman, but have more kind of capital with which to play with as the stadium gets paid off and the hotels are built, etc., etc. Would you be comfortable with Amanda Staveley coming in and putting together a consortium from the kind of Middle Eastern region, from the Gulf region? Maybe from Qatar. Maybe now that the guy from Qatar didn't get Manchester United and they went to Ineos. Ineos got Man United, a stake in Man United instead. Would you feel comfortable with oil money being the background of Tottenham Hotspur? Or do you want it to continue to be a sustainable club, easy for me to say, in the way that Daniel Levy and ENIC have run it? By which I mean the club is kind of only spending money that it earns itself. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. I think it's interesting. I'm not sure how comfortable I feel about it. I have some Newcastle United fans. They don't feel that comfortable with what's happened since Saudi took over there. Obviously, they enjoy the fact that they're now better. But they're also frustrated that, obviously, human rights abuses have been brought into play in terms of the politics of, you know, how much state-run football clubs should be a thing in the Premier League. Okay, on to some transfer news now. Victor Gyökeres is still firmly on Tottenham's radar. He's the Sporting Lisbon goal machine, scored loads of goals last season, and Tottenham are now relatively confident that he could be signed on a cut-price deal. Once again, as I've said all summer, a number 9 at Spurs, Ivan Toney or Gyökeres, I think is only a thing if, and it's a big if, Richarlison were to leave. More on that going forward. Meanwhile, Spurs and West Ham are apparently the only two clubs left in the race for Ivan Toney. Brentford now apparently willing to accept less than £50 million for the striker. As I mentioned at the top, Big Ange Postecoglou is among the FA's targets for the England manager's job. That's according to The Telegraph. Postecoglou, whilst getting ready for the Hearts game a couple of days ago, was asked about the England job links, and he said, "I was having a nap this afternoon. I have no idea. I'm the Tottenham manager and I'm determined to bring success to this club. That's where my focus is." Totally. Spurs believe that Postecoglou is committed to the job, and sources within the club, this is according to Matt Law, said that the only job that could tempt him away from Tottenham is the Manchester City role if and when Pep Guardiola leaves. Well, firstly, I think Pep Guardiola is probably going to leave at the end of this season, so that's a little too soon for me. But in terms of the FA having Ange Postecoglou on their list, I have to say, I'm not hugely surprised. The big thing that England are now looking for to move on from 2 finals, a semi-final and a quarter-final under Gareth Southgate, is progressive, front foot, forward-thinking football. And if you look down the list, who really are the managers who can guarantee you that? You go Klopp, you go Guardiola, I'm talking about with Premier League experience, and you talk about Ange Postecoglou, who is so single-minded in wanting that front foot, possession-based, forward-thinking football for 98 minutes a game. And that is something that if the English FA got him as England manager, England would have, no doubt. And that's why I'm not surprised he's on the list. I don't think it's going to happen, though. I wonder if Postecoglou got some trophies for Spurs in the next year or two, then he'd be interested in it. But I think it's just come a little too soon. Could be wrong. Let me know what you think in the comments. Ange Postecoglou is looking apparently to bring in a minimum of 3 senior signings, as in signings who can affect the first team squad between now and the end of the transfer window. And according to Fabrizio Romano, Spurs have now, in his words, gone cold in their pursuit of Desiree Doué. As I mentioned, I think at the beginning of the week, Doué apparently wants to go to Bayern Munich, and I do wonder whether the going cold element is actually the agent has told Tottenham Hotspur that Doué is not interested in coming to the club. I mentioned Richarlison earlier. Saudi dealmakers, that's again the Public Investment Fund, they've indicated they're prepared to pay close to what Tottenham paid for Richarlison from Everton. That's £60 million. Apparently Al Ittihad and Al Qadsiya have both expressed an interest in the Brazilian international. Spurs are braced for offers. Obviously, I haven't spoken to you guys since the Tottenham Hotspur 5 Hearts 1 game up in Edinburgh. I don't know if you guys watched it on Spurs Play. I've watched it. It was very impressive. The first goal, Brennan Johnson, a beautiful move between James Maddison and Decky Kulusevski in the kind of left-hand side, left central area, and a lovely flick from Kulusevski to get it back to Maddison, who then looked up, and as we saw a lot last season, this is what I would call the classic Tottenham Hotspur under Big Ange Postecoglou goal. Maddison gets to the byline, gets his head up, and who is coming in from the furthest wing? Brennan Johnson comes in, opens his body up, volleys it into the roof of the net. For the equaliser, Emerson Royale caught on the ball. He was brought on to play centre-back, caught on the ball, trying to be a bit too clever and just giving an easy chance to Hearts to make it 1-1. So a lot of people tweeting afterwards, how did we turn down €8 million for this player? Tottenham obviously feel like Royal has an asking price that they only want to meet. They only want AC Milan to meet. But with performances like that, it's not going to help. To make it 2-1, it was a Harry Kane-esque finish from Will Lancashire. A beautiful through ball from Jed Spence, who played really, really well. Drive, strength and guile from 16-year-old Mikey Moore for our third goal. Came in from the right, drove at the defenders, then brought it back onto his right foot and shot it right into the far left-hand corner. Really beautiful. And then Jed Spence got in at the back post from his inverted fullback position from a typical Timo Werner byline cross for the fourth. And an elite cross from the brilliant debutant Lucas Bergvall, which led to a header from Dane Scarlett that was saved, and then Ashley Phillips followed in for the fifth goal. 5-1 win. In terms of notable performances from that game, I thought Lucas Bergvall was really impressive. He really reminds me of young Luka Modric. Well, even Luka Modric now. Just the way that he manipulates the ball with both the inside and the outside of the foot, takes the ball in tight spaces. There was one amazing bit of play where he took the ball off, I think, the keeper in a tight space, and there was a player right on him pressing him, and instead of kind of going straight back to the keeper, as most of our players, let's face it, would, he half-turned and released it into a very tight area in the middle with the outside of his boot. Now, what I'd say about this, it was incredible because it worked. Obviously, in the Premier League where there's a lot more pressure, and especially in home games, I think, where the fans will be on top, will we give Lucas Bergvall the time to make some mistakes when he's being brave on the ball like that? I really hope we do, because I think we've got a really golden young wonder kid there. But we have to let him play his game. We have to let him keep his belief. If we gasp or boo every time he makes a mistake trying to play out the ball from that kind of 6 quarterback area, then he will stop trying. And we can't have that. And I just think we've got an elite young player there. It's really exciting. James Maddison was back to his confident best. Mikey Moore, for a 16-year-old, absolutely fearless. Jed Spence, as I mentioned, looked good inverted, but I wonder if he's left it a little bit too late. I've got some quotes from Ange that I'll tell you about Jed Spence a little bit later on. But we've had this in pre-seasons before where we think a player is never going to play for the club again, and then he comes and plays in pre-season and he does okay and looks good, and now people on Twitter are all like, maybe Jed Spence will get another chance, and then we sell him quite quickly afterwards. I wonder if that'll be the case with Jed Spence, but he did look really good, and obviously a great finish from Will Lancashire. Looked the part when the chance came to him. And I'll talk a little bit more about Will Lancashire later. Ange Postecoglou had some quotes on the game. He said it was a good exercise for us. The teams in both halves worked really hard and we played some decent football. When asked about Jed Spence, Ange said he was good tonight, took his goal well, he contributed well and got an assist. He's had a tough couple of years. I think with all of the players, when they are here with us, I treat them as Spurs players unless something suddenly changes. Now that to me is not the quote of a man who thinks for sure that Jed Spence will be with him for the whole season. Obviously, we've talked about him. He's undoubtedly a talented player, but has had some kind of behavioural issues. He kind of had some back and forth with, I think, Neil Warnock when he was at Middlesbrough, and then he went to Norwich on loan, didn't he? Was it Norwich on loan? And he went on loan last season. Daniel Farker at Leeds, sorry, that's right. Daniel Farker came out and did a big statement about how he wasn't impressive enough behaviourally. So let's see what happens. Ange was then asked about the injury situation at Spurs now. He says, Pat Matasar and Ben Davies should be okay for the pre-season tour that starts very soon to South Korea, of course. Richarlison, Fraser Forster are a little bit behind them. Ange Postecoglou then asked about transfers. He says, nothing has really changed. I'm comfortable. We've got a strategy in place about what we want to do. I'm really happy with the two lads we brought in, by which he means, of course, Bergvall and Archie Gray. Both obviously very talented, but more importantly, really ambitious. They're not here to ease their way in. They want to play, and I think that's great. They brought a good energy to the group, and no doubt there will be a couple more additions, but I'm comfortable with where we're at. Archie Gray, who played really well at centre-back, a new position for him, he was asked about how he felt about his debut. He said, I wasn't expecting to play centre-back, but I'm really grateful for the opportunity to play and learn different positions. I don't really care where I play. I'm 18 years old and I need to learn the game. Anywhere he puts me, I'm just happy to learn the game and have great teammates around me to teach me things about the game. He looks like a very composed, grounded, young talent, and I think we're very lucky to have him. Meanwhile, Alistair Gold has had some insight from within the club. He said that it's understood that for the past week or so in first-team training, Will Lancashire has been the most impressive centre-forward in the group, and maybe he will get some more chances, certainly in pre-season, to impress under Ange Postecoglou. Some other Tottenham news: Southampton's head of national recruitment, Simon Jones, is said to join the club. Jones, who led Southampton signings between under-14s and under-19s level, will reunite with the head of academy recruitment, Jack Chapman, at Spurs. So that shows that Tottenham, once again, looking to invest in their academy. I mentioned it, I think, maybe back end of last week. Manchester City and Chelsea miles ahead of Tottenham in terms of their academy, getting great players, bleeding them into the first team with little bits of minutes from the substitutes bench, and then maybe even selling them at big fees. This is where Manchester City have been incredible. They invested in their academy maybe 15 or so years ago, and as a result, I think they've made something like £400 million from players who have barely played for the first team. So yes, obviously the dream is like Harry Kane, you get players coming through for the first team, one of our own, etc. But even if not, you put some investment into these young players in the academy, and then they can make you money on the back end. Okay, some other transfer news from across the Premier League and beyond. I'm sure you'll have heard yesterday, Lenny Yoro has signed from Lille for Manchester United, £52 million for an 18-year-old centre-back. Centre-backs, of course, don't usually mature to play their best until their mid to late 20s. He must be a super, super talent, but the pressure will really be on him. £52 million. And that is money that they were looking to spend on Jared Branthwaite or Matthias de Ligt. I don't know if they'll still go for one of those or not, but they got their player through the door. Meanwhile, also at Old Trafford, apparently they've asked about Germany defender Jonathan Tah, with Bayern Munich having failed to reach an agreement with Bayer Leverkusen to sign the 28-year-old. That's according to Florian Pletterberg. That is another centre-half. Maybe Man United just looking for a complete overhaul. Obviously, Varane has gone. I think Lindelof has either gone or is going to go. Harry Maguire being linked with elsewhere as ever. So United looking to really completely overhaul their centre-back partnerships. I think Aaron Wan-Bissaka is likely to go as well, so maybe also all their back four. Mason Greenwood has joined Marseille. Obviously, the troubled youngster has gone for €30 million plus a 50% sell-on clause. So Man United are confident he'll do well at Marseille and get a move to a bigger club elsewhere. I have to say, I saw the social media post from Manchester United that said Greenwood had left the club, and it was to... Well, it's no understatement to say there was no kind of love lost in that statement. It just said Mason Greenwood has agreed to go to Marseille rather than any kind of usual good luck for the rest of your career. Galatasaray are in talks to sign Man United and Scotland midfielder Scott McTominay. Fulham, of course, have also been interested in him. As I mentioned, West Ham are in advanced talks with United to sign Wan-Bissaka. Apparently any fee over £15 million would do the job for that. And then, according to Mike Keegan, if Erik ten Hag is at any point sacked by Manchester United, Thomas Tuchel is expected to be first in line as a replacement, with a move for Gareth Southgate apparently being highly unlikely. A lot of people were linking Southgate with a potential move to Man United because of Dan Ashworth, who he worked with at the FA, now being one of the bigwigs at United. But no, apparently the next on the block would be Thomas Tuchel. A rumour that came out a day and a half or so, Real Madrid really interested in Trent Alexander-Arnold from Liverpool. He's 25 years old now. He's only got 1 year left on his deal, and it seems to me like he's not going to sign that deal, and he wants a move to Real. Fulham have had a big bid rejected for Emile Smith-Rowe, Arsenal's number 10. They're looking at potentially moving in for another bid to get him. He's considered one of their main targets, with Fulham prepared to invest part of that budget they've got from the sale of Paulinho to Bayern Munich. But apparently a lot depends on whether Arsenal want to sell Smith-Rowe. He didn't get many minutes last year. Obviously, Martin Ødegaard is the main man, number 10 there. He's an excellent player, I'm afraid to say. But Smith-Rowe not leaving Arsenal quite yet, but Fulham very interested. Everton have a genuine interest in Willy Gnonto. Talks taking place with the players' camp. Negotiations underway to see what conditions it would take to get him over to Goodison Park. West Ham have had some more really interesting transfer dealings that they're looking to get through the door. They've agreed a loan with option deal for Jean-Claire Todibo. Of course, Spurs were interested in a year or two ago. And as of this morning, talks underway with the Saudi PIF, Public Investment Fund, to try and get N'Golo Kante back. He had a really good Euros for France. France were very underwhelming, but Kante looked good. And when you get him on the pitch, he is an unbelievable defensive midfielder / box-to-box midfielder with an engine that won't stop. But be interested to see West Ham under Julian Lopetegui making some interesting moves this summer. They have got a very old squad though, and they're going for more kind of old players, links with Wilfried Zaha as well. So they're obviously not looking to go young. They're looking to try and have success now. Talking of West Ham, Flynn Downs has left them to join Southampton, promoted Southampton for £18 million. Some other transfer news. João Neves of Benfica, close to joining Paris Saint-Germain. The fee is around €70 million. Paris Saint-Germain also in talks with Napoli, Antonio Conte's Napoli, to get Victor Osimhen out of Italy and in to replace Kylian Mbappe in Paris. I haven't really spoken to you in great length since Gareth Southgate left his role as manager of the England national team. One of the top names on the list alongside Ange Postecoglou is Eddie Howe, but Newcastle CEO Darren Eales has said the following: for sure, we're going to fight to keep Eddie at the club. He's exactly the right man for the project we're on at Newcastle United, and that is why we're committed to a long-term deal with him. We love him. Meanwhile, Thomas Tuchel apparently wants to be the next England manager. That's according to The Sun. Also on the FA's list, Graham Potter, Maurizio Pochettino, who I would like to be the England manager. I think that would be good. And Lee Carsey, the England under-21 manager who won them a European Championship last summer, playing some beautiful front foot football. However, Miguel Delaney says that the FA want to appoint Pep Guardiola and are willing to wait for the Spaniard with his contract at Man City ending next summer. That means they could appoint an interim England manager until then. According to TalkSport, which let's just say take it with a pinch of salt, England women's manager Sarina Wiegman is on the list, and apparently ex-Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp not interested in taking the job. Also need to mention from a couple of days ago the video of the Argentinian players singing racist songs about Mbappe and the French squad. Really, really bad stuff. And Chelsea and France defender Wesley Fofana said on his Instagram story about it: football in 2024, uninhibited racism. Chelsea's Disasi, Malo Gusto and Wesley Fofana have unfollowed Enzo Fernandez, their Chelsea teammate who was leading that racist chanting. They've unfollowed him on Instagram following that. I don't know, just once again, I talked to you earlier this month about Rodrigo Bentancur's kind of racism towards East Asians when he was out on the Copa America, and now Enzo Fernandez and the Argentinian side, a lot of them seen doing racist chanting. It just won't go away, racism, and it's just very disappointing. And one final bit of news: the Nigerian national team have apparently held talks with Manchester United's senior first-team coach Steve McClaren about being their next manager. Steve McClaren, whose career has really kind of dropped off. He is an assistant manager, of course, at Man United under Erik ten Hag, but they've just brought in Ruud van Nistelrooy, so I wonder how long he'll be there. McClaren did, after obviously failing at England, go and win an Eredivisie title in Holland, but then had some disappointing spells, one of which was, of course, in charge at Newcastle in England, and I'm not really sure that his career will ever recover, but maybe another international management job at Nigeria is the answer. Guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. I really appreciate it. Once again, please do press that like button, press subscribe. I'm trying to get towards 10,000 subscribers. If you can press that subscribe button and spread the word about the channel to other Spurs fans and transfer fans, so they can subscribe too. That'd be really helpful. Also, please do become a member. Only £1 a month, and it really helps me. All the details in the description box below. And you can listen to this as an audio podcast too. Go over to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, type in the Spurred On podcast, and you'll find me there every single day. Although not yesterday, because it was my mum's birthday. Happy birthday, SDS. Guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. Have a great day. Goodbye.